So recently a prototype of Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance was released. This prototype showcased some small yet interesting differences from the final release of the game. For instance, the horrendous sky battle mechanic used to apparently require timed quick time silent inputs in order to win. It also had this major bug where the two fighters would begin to drift away from each other during the sky battle, so you get stuff like However, one of the most intriguing pieces of this prototype is a functionality that is highlighted in the options menu for a GameCube link. Here, we're given the option to transfer our progress to the GameCube and also from the GameCube back to the GPA, though selecting the option doesn't do anything here. Again, this is a feature that does not exist in the final version of the game, mainly because there's no respective GameCube game for it to connect to. Budokai 1 and 2, as well as Dragon Ball Z Sagas, were released on the GameCube, but the Budokai games were developed in Japan, and Sagas was developed by Avalanche Software and released years after Taiketsu. So what game was this supposed to connect to? Taiketsu's GameCube connectivity wasn't exactly a secret. It was actually one of its original advertised features. A GameStop interview with Chris Lundeen, producer of Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu, essentially confirms the claims of a GameCube tie-in title. Here, GameSpot asks if Taiketsu will have any connectivity with the Nintendo GameCube, to which Chris Lundeen responds, yes, Taiketsu has the ability to connect to a future GameCube release in order to fully unlock all the secrets. So what's the deal? What happened to this GameCube game? Well, at the very least, we know why the feature was scrapped. In an interview with IGN, Dana Dominic of Webfoot Technologies said, "We feel it's important to get Taiketsu into the player's hands as quickly as possible. A link to the GameCube was initially planned, but due to very different release dates between the Game Boy Advance and any future GameCube title, in the end it was not feasible." We also know from the Legacy of Goku 1 interview in Nintendo Power that Webfoot Technologies had an impressive collection of Dragon Ball related 3D models used to help create the art in the Legacy of Goku. The sprites in Taiketsu specifically were digitized from this repository in the same way that Donkey Kong Country was. And so they theoretically had a lot of the starting resources they needed to create a console title. Now, as I was looking into this mysterious GameCube game, I also came across a video from Matt McMuscles, a popular YouTuber who was able to actually get in contact with a past employee at Webfoot Technologies and get more information. In his video, which I've linked in the comments, he mentions a game called Saiyan Smash, a Power Stone clone that was being worked on as the developers at Webfoot slaved over Taiketsu. This bit of information helped me track down a little bit more information on this canceled Dragon Ball title, leading me to GamePro Magazine issue 162 back in March of 2002. The issue featured a cover story on the collectible card game and the Legacy of Goku games for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, as well as words from Paul Ryan of Infogrames on 2 planned Dragon Ball console games coming in the near future. The GameCube game that's mentioned here is stated to be an action-adventure game similar to the Legacy of Goku. He says the GameCube game will be a much bigger, enriched product than any of the Game Boy Advance series, and it will also enhance the gameplay of the GBA games. The GameCube game will be an action-adventure RPG with some fighting elements similar to the Legacy of Goku. It'll be a one-player title, but it will also enable you to play as over 30 Dragon Ball Z characters. The storyline, however, is still in the early stages. A developer hasn't been picked yet, but the goal is to have the storyline connect with the Game Boy Advance series. Moreover, you'll be able to transfer valuable power-ups, characters, and other cool stuff between the two systems. Ryan also stresses that transferring information from the GameCube version to the handheld version will actually enhance the gameplay in the Game Boy Advance games. So this concept sounded very similar to Dragon Ball Z Sagas, which would be developed by Avalanche Software. Though we do have actual pre-footage, presumably by Webfoot Technologies, thanks to GameFAQs user Spiral Sword, who preserved it. And this matches what we see from the prototype options in Taiketsu and some of the information revealed to IGN and GameSpot. Paul then goes on to talk about their upcoming PlayStation 2 game, which was a multiplayer arena fight fest featuring around 30 characters. Paul Ryan says, the level of complexity will be much different than in the GameCube game. The universe will be much bigger, it won't be part of a trilogy, and it will have its own storyline. It will be a cool action-adventure game with a significant number of fighting elements. Like the GameCube version, the PS2 title will have over 30 playable characters, but it certainly won't be just a one-player game. Plans so far call for a multiplayer Fight Fest arena style. Ryan hopes that once Sony finalizes its online strategy, meaning a network that's up and running, the game will support between 6 to 8 players who will be able to duke it out at the same time. The game will also support multiplayer Havoc offline as well. So this description is the one that most matches what was mentioned in Mac McMuscle's video. The magazine itself also shows off some renders that are specifically mentioned to not be for any specific console. In the end, these GameCube and PlayStation 2 games were seemingly swept under the rug. As far as I know, there aren't any official public press releases on these theoretical games. Atari and Infogram's mission at the time seemed to be to pump out as many games under the Dragon Ball license as possible before they lost access to the brand, and that meant creating demos and concepts that would capture markets that developers in Japan currently weren't capturing. In that same GamePro article, we even got word of a potential first-person shooter themed around Dragon Ball for the PC. The concept seemed very close to a popular old Quake mod called Bid for Power. I have to give it to the sheer variety of experiences that they're willing to go down with. In my opinion, Saiyan Smash, this Power Stone inspired game, seemed like a great concept, in that it wasn't competing directly with the Dragon Ball Z Budokai games. The game probably wouldn't have turned out good given the massive time and resource crunch that was placed on the developers at Webfoot Technologies, but even just having a unique way to play Dragon Ball would have been a win in my book. The closest we get to this type of game is the tournament mode within the Nintendo Wii's Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo. That mode isn't exactly to the same level as a standalone arcade fighting game like Power Stone, but Revenge of Piccolo itself is still underrated, especially its cutscenes. Anyway, I hope you learned something with this video. This video really required a bit more research on my part to put together. If you're interested in more Dragon Ball and gaming related content, please subscribe, and I hope to put out more videos like this in the future. Anyways, bye.